When Marcus Chen opened his mail that Tuesday morning, he had no idea that a single envelope would force him to confront the most painful chapter of his life. Inside was an invitation that would challenge everything he believed about success, love, and redemption. The billionaire CEO of Chen Industries was being invited to watch the woman he once loved marry another man. But what Marcus decided to do next would shock everyone who knew him, including the bride herself. This is the true story of a man who built an empire but lost his soul, and how one wedding invitation became the key to finding himself again. What happened at that church would change not just Marcus Chen's life, but redefine what it means to truly win. But before we start this incredible story, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Now, let me take you back to where it all began, 10 years earlier, when Marcus Chen was just another struggling entrepreneur with big dreams and an even bigger blind spot. Marcus Chen wasn't born into wealth. In 2014, he was a 28-year-old software developer working 18-hour days from a cramped studio apartment in Queens, New York. His company, Chen Technologies, existed mainly on paper and hope. But Marcus had something money couldn't buy, an unwavering belief that technology could change the world. He also had something even more valuable, though he didn't realize it at the time. He had Dr. Sarah Williams. Sarah was everything Marcus wasn't. Where he was chaotic and driven by ambition, she was steady and driven by compassion. A third-year medical resident at Mount Sinai Hospital, Sarah worked brutal shifts saving lives while Marcus worked brutal hours trying to save his failing startup. They met at a coffee shop near the hospital. Marcus was there because the Wi-Fi was free and the coffee was cheap. Sarah was there because she had exactly 20 minutes between a surgery and her next shift. What should have been a brief encounter turned into a 3-hour conversation that neither of them wanted to end. Within 6 months, they were inseparable. Sarah would study medical journals while Marcus coded late into the night. They shared everything: dreams, fears, ramen noodles, and a belief that they were building something beautiful together. For 3 years, their love story played out against the backdrop of struggle and ambition. Sarah supported Marcus through 17 failed investor meetings. Marcus supported Sarah through the emotional toll of losing patients and the physical exhaustion of residency. They were broke, but they were happy. They were building 2 careers and 1 life, and it felt like nothing could tear them apart. But success has a way of changing people in ways they never expect. The transformation began in early 2017 when Marcus finally secured his first major investment round. $3 million suddenly made Chen Technologies a real company with real employees and real pressure to succeed. At first, Sarah was Marcus's biggest supporter. She celebrated every milestone, understood every late night, and believed in his vision as much as he did. But as the company grew, so did the demands on Marcus's time and attention. The 18-hour days became 20-hour days. The weekend dates became conference calls. The intimate dinners became takeout eaten alone while Marcus attended virtual meetings. Sarah began to feel like she was in a relationship with a ghost. Marcus was physically present but mentally absent, always thinking about the next deal, the next hire, the next expansion. The warning signs were subtle at first. Marcus would check his phone during conversations. He would schedule calls during Sarah's rare free evenings. He would promise to be present and then disappear into his work the moment his phone buzzed. Sarah tried to address the growing distance between them. She suggested they set boundaries around work time. She asked Marcus to put his phone away during meals. She tried to plan activities that would force them to reconnect. But Marcus was intoxicated by success in a way that made everything else seem secondary. Every achievement validated his sacrifices. Every milestone justified the next level of commitment to his company. By 2018, Chen Technologies had grown to 50 employees and was being courted by major corporations for partnerships. Marcus was featured on magazine covers and invited to speak at conferences. His net worth had climbed to 8 figures, and the trajectory seemed unstoppable. Sarah watched the man she loved become someone she barely recognized. The passionate, idealistic developer who used to talk about changing the world had been replaced by a CEO who talked about market share and quarterly projections. The breaking point came on Sarah's 28th birthday. Marcus had promised Sarah that her birthday would be different. No work calls, no emergency meetings, no distractions. Just the two of them at Café Luna, the small Italian restaurant where they had their first real date. Sarah had been looking forward to this evening for weeks. She had even bought a new dress and taken the night off from the hospital, which was rare given her demanding schedule as a resident. But at 4 p.m. on the day of her birthday, Marcus received a call that would change everything. A major tech company wanted to discuss an acquisition deal, but the executives were only available that evening. The potential value of the deal was beyond anything Marcus had imagined. Marcus found himself facing an impossible choice: honor his commitment to Sarah or pursue an opportunity that could transform his company overnight. He chose the company. Marcus called Sarah 2 hours before their reservation to explain that he had to fly to San Francisco immediately. He promised to make it up to her, swore that this was the last time work would interfere with their relationship, and assured her that once this deal was closed, everything would be different. Sarah sat alone at Café Luna that night, watching couples around her celebrate while she waited for a man who never came. The waiter, recognizing her from previous visits, gently suggested that perhaps her companion had been delayed. She waited for 2 hours before finally accepting that Marcus wasn't coming. When Marcus returned from San Francisco 3 days later, flush with excitement about the deal he had just closed, he found Sarah packing her belongings into boxes. The conversation that followed was quiet and devastating. There was no screaming, no dramatic accusations, just the calm recognition that they had become incompatible. Sarah told Marcus that she couldn't compete with his ambition anymore. She couldn't live with someone who saw their relationship as something to be managed around business priorities. Marcus tried to explain that the sacrifices were temporary, that once the company reached a certain level of success, he would have more time for their relationship. But Sarah had heard these promises before, and she no longer believed them. She told Marcus that she loved him, but she couldn't love the person he was becoming. She couldn't watch him lose himself to success while losing herself in the process. Marcus begged her to reconsider, promised to change, swore that he would find a better balance. But Sarah had already made her decision. She left that night, and Marcus never saw her again. After Sarah left, Marcus threw himself even deeper into his work. If she couldn't understand his dedication to building something important, he would prove that his sacrifices had been worth it. Over the next 5 years, Marcus achieved everything he had dreamed of and more. Chen Technologies went public in 2020, making Marcus a billionaire at the age of 34. The company expanded internationally, won industry awards, and was hailed as one of the most innovative tech firms in the world. Marcus's personal wealth grew to astronomical levels. He bought a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, collected luxury cars, and traveled the world for business and pleasure. He was featured on the covers of Fortune and Forbes magazines as one of the most successful young entrepreneurs in America. But success came with a price that Marcus hadn't calculated. His penthouse, worth $50 million, felt empty and cold. His social circle consisted entirely of business associates, investors, and other wealthy entrepreneurs who saw relationships as networking opportunities. Marcus dated occasionally, but every relationship followed the same pattern. Women were attracted to his wealth and status, but they eventually realized that his company would always be his first priority. He was incapable of giving anyone the attention and presence they deserved. 3 months before the wedding invitation arrived, Marcus had made an appointment with Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a therapist who specialized in working with high-achieving individuals who struggled with personal relationships. During their first session, Dr. Rodriguez asked Marcus a question that haunted him. "You've achieved everything you set out to accomplish. Why do you still feel empty?" Marcus couldn't answer that question. On paper, his life was perfect. He had wealth, influence, respect, and success beyond his wildest dreams. But he felt disconnected from everyone and everything around him. Dr. Rodriguez helped Marcus understand that his relentless pursuit of success had cost him his ability to form genuine connections with other people. He had become so focused on building his empire that he had forgotten how to build relationships. During their sessions, Marcus began to confront the reality that losing Sarah hadn't just been the end of a relationship. It had been the beginning of a pattern of emotional isolation that had defined his life for 5 years. Dr. Rodriguez challenged Marcus to consider whether his definition of success was actually serving him, or whether he had confused achievement with fulfillment. It was during this period of self-reflection that Marcus's assistant handed him an envelope that would force him to confront his past in a way he never expected. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning in late spring. Marcus was in his office, reviewing quarterly projections, when his assistant placed it on his desk alongside the usual stack of business correspondence. But this envelope was different. The handwriting was familiar, elegant, and immediately recognizable despite the years that had passed. Dr. Sarah Williams requests the honor of your presence at her marriage to Dr. James Patterson. Marcus read the invitation 3 times before the reality of it settled in. Sarah was getting married. The woman he had lost because he couldn't balance love and ambition had found someone who could give her what she needed. His first emotion was shock. His second was a complicated mixture of regret and curiosity. But as he continued to stare at the invitation, he noticed something that surprised him. On the back of the invitation, Sarah had written a personal note in the same careful handwriting he remembered from years earlier. Marcus, I know this might seem strange, but you were an important part of my life. You helped shape who I became, even if our relationship ended. I would be honored if you could celebrate this day with me. I hope you're well and happy. With gratitude for our shared past and best wishes for your future, Sarah. Marcus sat in his office for an hour, holding that invitation and trying to process the emotions it had awakened. For 5 years, he had buried his feelings about Sarah and their relationship. He had convinced himself that their breakup was inevitable, that they had simply wanted different things from life. But Sarah's note suggested something different. She wasn't angry or bitter. She was grateful. She saw their relationship, even its ending, as something that had contributed to her growth. Marcus consulted everyone he trusted about whether he should attend the wedding. His business advisor thought it was a terrible idea that could only reopen old wounds. His mother thought it showed strength and maturity. Dr. Rodriguez asked him what he hoped to gain from the experience. The truth was, Marcus didn't know what he hoped to gain. He only knew that something about Sarah's invitation felt like an opportunity for closure that he had never properly achieved. After 3 days of deliberation, Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone who knew him. He was going to the wedding. Once Marcus decided to attend the wedding, he found himself preparing for it in ways he hadn't expected. This wasn't going to be a business meeting where he could rely on his usual confidence and expertise. This was going to be an emotional reckoning with his past. The night before the wedding, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He wrote a letter to Sarah that he never intended to send. In that letter, he apologized for the person he had been during their relationship. He acknowledged that his ambition had consumed his humanity, that his success had come at the cost of his ability to love someone properly. He wrote about the loneliness that had defined his life since she left, about the hollow nature of achievements that couldn't be shared with someone who truly mattered. He wrote about the relationships he had sabotaged since their breakup, all because he had never learned how to prioritize another person's needs alongside his own ambitions. Writing that letter forced Marcus to confront emotions he had been avoiding for 5 years. He realized that he hadn't just lost Sarah when their relationship ended. He had lost the version of himself who had been capable of genuine connection. As he prepared for the wedding, Marcus made a decision about how he would conduct himself. He wasn't going to try to win Sarah back or disrupt her happiness. He wasn't going to use the occasion to network or promote his business interests. He was going to honor the person who had helped him become successful, even if he had lost her in the process. He was going to face the consequences of his choices with dignity and gratitude. Dr. Rodriguez had warned him that attending the wedding might bring up emotions he wasn't prepared to handle. But Marcus felt that he owed it to himself and to Sarah to witness her happiness, even if it reminded him of everything he had sacrificed to achieve his success. The morning of the wedding arrived clear and bright, and Marcus drove himself to the church in his most modest car, prepared to face whatever emotions the day might bring. St. Matthew's Episcopal Church was filled with 200 guests when Marcus arrived. He had deliberately chosen to sit in the back, away from family sections, hoping to observe the ceremony without drawing attention to himself. But his presence didn't go unnoticed. Several guests recognized him from business magazines and news articles. Whispers followed him as he found his seat, speculation about why the billionaire CEO was attending his ex-girlfriend's wedding. Marcus ignored the attention and focused on why he was there. When the ceremony began and Sarah appeared at the back of the church, he felt his breath catch in his throat. She looked radiant in a way that was deeper than the beauty of her wedding dress or the perfection of her makeup. She looked genuinely, completely happy in a way that Marcus remembered but had forgotten. As Sarah walked down the aisle toward her future husband, Marcus saw Dr. James Patterson for the first time. He was a pediatric surgeon, about Marcus's age, with kind eyes and a smile that spoke of genuine warmth. But what struck Marcus most powerfully was the way James looked at Sarah. There was complete presence in his gaze, total focus and attention that Marcus recognized because he knew he had never been able to give it himself. During the ceremony, Marcus listened as Sarah and James exchanged vows they had written themselves. Sarah spoke about partnership, about choosing each other every day, about building a life that honored both of their dreams while creating something beautiful together. James spoke about presence, about being fully committed not just to loving Sarah but to showing up for her in every moment, big and small. As Marcus listened to their vows, he understood that he was witnessing something he had never learned how to create, a relationship built on mutual choice rather than compromise. Sarah and James weren't just promising to love each other. They were promising to prioritize their relationship alongside their individual ambitions, to create space for both personal growth and shared connection. Marcus realized that this was what Sarah had been trying to teach him during their relationship. Love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It was about consistent presence and daily choice. The ceremony concluded with a kiss that brought tears to many eyes, including Marcus's. But he wasn't crying from jealousy or regret. He was crying from gratitude for witnessing what authentic love actually looked like. As the newlyweds walked back down the aisle together, Sarah's eyes found Marcus in the crowd. She smiled at him with genuine warmth and mouthed the words, "Thank you," before continuing toward her new life. Marcus had planned to leave immediately after the ceremony, but as he made his way toward the exit, he felt a gentle touch on his arm. "Marcus, I'm so glad you came." He turned to find Sarah standing beside him, still glowing from the ceremony, her wedding dress rustling softly in the evening breeze. "I wasn't sure you would," she continued, her voice warm and sincere. "I almost didn't," Marcus replied honestly. "But I needed to be here. To see if I was happy." Sarah asked with a slight smile. "To see what real love looks like," Marcus answered. They talked for 20 minutes in a quiet corner of the church courtyard. Not about the past, not about regrets or what might have been, but about growth and gratitude. Sarah told Marcus that leaving him had been the most difficult decision she had ever made, but it had taught her what she truly needed in a partner. She had learned the difference between loving someone and being able to build a life with them. Marcus told Sarah that losing her had been the most expensive lesson of his life, but it had ultimately taught him that success without connection was just elaborate loneliness. Then Sarah said something that completely transformed Marcus's understanding of their relationship. "Marcus, I need to thank you for something I never got to say when we broke up. You showed me what I didn't want, and that helped me recognize what I did want when I found it." She explained that her relationship with Marcus had taught her to value presence over potential, consistency over grand gestures, partnership over passion alone. "James chooses me every day," Sarah said softly. "Not just in the big moments, but in the small ones. He puts his phone away during dinner. He remembers what matters to me. He shows up." Marcus understood that their relationship hadn't been a failure. It had been a necessary step in both of their journeys toward understanding authentic love. As James approached to reclaim his bride for photographs, Sarah hugged Marcus goodbye. "I hope you find someone who chooses you every day," she whispered. I hope I become someone worth choosing, Marcus replied. Marcus left the wedding with something he hadn't expected to find: peace. For 5 years, he had carried guilt and regret about their relationship ending. But witnessing Sarah's happiness had freed him from that burden. The following Monday, Marcus did something his employees had never seen before. He restructured his entire schedule to include actual lunch breaks, evening downtime, and weekends free from work calls. 6 months later, Marcus met Dr. Lisa Chen at a charity event focused on educational technology. She was an environmental lawyer who challenged his thinking about corporate responsibility and wasn't impressed by his wealth or status. Their first date lasted 6 hours, not because Marcus was trying to impress her with expensive restaurants or exclusive experiences, but because he had finally learned how to be fully present with another person. Lisa later told him that what attracted her wasn't his success, but his ability to listen completely and respond thoughtfully to what she was saying. A year after Sarah's wedding, Marcus proposed to Lisa on a Tuesday evening in her apartment after they had cooked dinner together. The ring was beautiful but not ostentatious. The moment was simple but completely genuine. Sarah's wedding hadn't just been a celebration of her new beginning. It had been the catalyst for Marcus to finally understand what he had been missing his entire adult life. Love wasn't about achieving the perfect moment or accumulating enough success to deserve happiness. It was about showing up completely for another person, day after day, and choosing them consistently over the endless distractions that modern life provides. Marcus learned that the greatest victory isn't building an empire. It's building a life that feels worth living, shared with someone who sees and values who you really are beneath all your achievements. Sometimes the most valuable thing an ex can give you is the wisdom to love someone else better. And sometimes the best wedding gift you can receive is the knowledge that both people made the right choice by letting each other go. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And tell us in the comments, what's the most valuable lesson a past relationship taught you about love? Remember to subscribe for more stories about second chances, personal growth, and the courage to become who you're meant to be. Because everyone deserves a love story that feels like coming home.